Hello 12SE. Today we're going to have a revision about everything we took since the beginning of the year about food. First, what is food? Food is anything that we eat through our mouth and maintains our life and growth and supplies us with energy and also replaces and builds tissues. There is no complete food that can secure all nutrients, but mother's milk is an exception. It is sufficient only for the early stages of life. If we want to define food, food is made of 5 basic nutrients, which are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, minerals, and vitamins. When we eat food, it supplies us with energy. It also provides us growth, maintenance, and regulatory material. So there are 4 main reasons we eat food. It is energy, growth, maintenance, and regulatory. The first class of food, as we mentioned before, are carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are among the most abundant molecules on Earth. Carbohydrates are mainly produced by photosynthesis in plants when carbon dioxide reacts with water in order to produce carbohydrates like glucose plus oxygen. Certain carbohydrates, such as starch and sugar, are essential constituents of our food, as we mentioned above. The oxidation of carbohydrates is considered the main source of energy and is considered the fuel for the human body. And as you can see, it is opposite to photosynthesis, when glucose reacts with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. Simple carbohydrates are substances composed of 3 elements: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The general formula of carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, is CnH2OM, where N and M are numbers. In glucose, for example, which is C6H12O6, N is 6 and M is also 6. In table sugar or sucrose, which is C12H22O11, N is 12 and M is 11. So as we can see, N and M represent whole numbers, multiples of carbon and water. What do simple sugars contain? Simple sugars, as we said, are the simplest form of carbohydrates. Each carbohydrate, simple carbohydrate, contains 1 carbonyl, C double bond O, and several hydroxyl OH. Therefore, as we said, carbohydrates should contain 1 carbonyl, C double bond O, and several hydroxyl OH groups per molecule. So you can see, for example, these molecules above, they contain 1 C double bond O and several hydroxyls. All the first row of carbohydrates are aldoses. If the carbonyl, the C double bond O, is at the edge, if the carbonyl C double bond O is at the edge, then the carbonyl is called an aldo group, If the C double bond O is at the edge, the carbonyl is called aldo. If the carbonyl is in the middle, look at the lower row, if the carbonyl, the C double bond O, is in the middle, anywhere in the middle, but at the terminals. So if it's at the edge, the carbonyl is called aldo. If the carbonyl is somewhere in the middle, then it is called keto, and it is called keto. Therefore, the carbonyls above are aldo. So the sugars above are called aldo sugars, while the carbonyls below are called keto groups. Therefore, aldo and keto represent 2 different classes of carbohydrates. Usually, Keto carbohydrates or ketoses are sometimes sweeter than aldoses. Carbonyl and hydroxyl groups are called functional groups, and they are responsible for the chemical properties of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are divided into three main groups: monosaccharides, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. Mono means one unit. Oligo means 2 to 10. Poly means many, greater than 100. Let's start with monosaccharides. Monosaccharides, as we said, are the smallest form of sugar. They are white crystalline solids, soluble in water, but they are insoluble in most organic compounds, which are nonpolar. Monosaccharides are composed of a chain of carbon atoms bonded to each other by single covalent bonds. So as you can see, all carbons are bonded to each other by single covalent bonds. And as we said, each carbon should contain either a carbonyl or a hydroxyl. Each sugar contains one carbonyl and several hydroxyl groups. Monosaccharides are the simplest units of carbohydrates that cannot be broken by digestion or hydrolysis into smaller sugar units. So all these sugars, as you can see, are monosaccharides. They are the smallest form of sugar. According to the nature of carbonyl group, as we said, they are classified either as aldoses, like the above row, or ketoses, the below row. So the above row, the carbonyl at the edge, these are aldoses. The carbonyl in the middle, they are called ketoses. Monosaccharides can also be classified according to the number of carbon atoms. So these two are trioses because they are made of 3 carbon atoms. These two are pentoses because they are made of 5 carbon atoms. These 3 are hexoses because they are made of 6 carbon atoms. Therefore, monosaccharides could be also classified according to the number of carbon atoms per molecule. All monosaccharides are reactive and reducing sugars. They react with Fehling's solution, which is blue in color. When you mix a monosaccharide with Fehling's solution and heat, the blue color turns into brick red. So when a reducing sugar or a monosaccharide reacts with Fehling's solution, this is Fehling's solution, then you get a brick red color. If you don't get a brick red color, then that sugar is not a reducing sugar. Glucose, fructose, galactose are monosaccharides. They are reducing sugars. While we're going to see that many other oligosaccharides are not reducing sugars. First and the most famous monosaccharide is glucose of molecular formula C6H12O6. And as you can see, it is a aldose. It's an aldose because the carbonyl is at the terminal. It's a hexose because it is made of 6 carbon atoms. So it's an aldohexose, and it's a reducing sugar. And it is the most important sugar for humans as it is found in our blood, and it is the main nutrient for our cells and the brain. Glucose can exist in 2 forms, cyclic and linear. All you have to know that it exists in 2 forms. You're not supposed to memorize these structures. The second monosaccharide is fructose, which is an isomer of glucose. Isomer means it has the same molecular formula, C6H12O6, but a different structure. And as you can see, fructose is a ketose. It's a ketohexose because the carbonyl is in the middle. Fructose is also a reducing sugar. You can see the difference between glucose and fructose. They are isomers. The third monosaccharide is galactose. It's also an isomer of glucose and fructose, but it is less sweet than them. And this is its structure. Like glucose, it's an aldose because the carbonyl is found at the terminal. It is also a reducing sugar, and it is found mainly in milk, as we're going to see later. The second main group of carbohydrates is oligosaccharides. Oligosaccharides are carbohydrates that contain 2 to 10 monosaccharide units. When a monosaccharide combines to another monosaccharide, we get a disaccharide and a water molecule is released. When 3 monosaccharides condense, they produce a trisaccharide and 2 water molecules are released. Disaccharides, therefore, are those in which 2 monosaccharides are linked together by a glycosidic bond or linkage. What is a glycosidic bond? A glycosidic bond is a carbon-oxygen-carbon bond that links one monosaccharide to another with the release of a water molecule. So when a monosaccharide, like here, glucose, combines to another glucose molecule or another fructose, in this case it is combining to a fructose, they produce a disaccharide with the release of a water molecule. So any 2 monosaccharides, when they link to each other, they form a disaccharide, they form a glycosidic bond. The most famous disaccharide is sucrose, which is known as table sugar. It's produced commercially from sugar beets and sugar cane. It's a non-reducing sugar. It does not react with Fehling's solution. And how it is formed? When a glucose molecule combines to a fructose molecule, condensation occurs or synthesis. It produces sucrose plus water. So sucrose is made of the combination of glucose plus fructose. The opposite reaction is called digestion or hydrolysis. It happens when we eat sucrose. When we eat sucrose, in the presence of water in our stomach and acids and enzymes, it is broken back into glucose and fructose. It takes place, as we said, in the presence of enzymes called sucrase in humans and invertase in plants. Sucrose is sweeter than glucose, but less sweet than fructose. And as we know, sucrose is sold in the markets. The second most important oligosaccharide is lactose, which is the milk sugar. It's synthesized in the mammary glands of mammals. Its concentration in milk ranges between 10 to 80 grams per liter. Lactose is formed by the condensation of glucose and galactose. According to the equation, glucose plus galactose, when they form a glycosidic bond, they produce lactose plus water. The opposite reaction is called hydrolysis. It's the digestion of lactose with water in the presence of an enzyme called lactase to break back into glucose and galactose. Lactose is slightly soluble in water and it's less sweet than sucrose. Lactose intolerance. For many people, the digestion and the absorption of lactose is a problem. Those people suffer from lactose intolerance. Lactose intolerance is the absence of the enzyme lactase from the digestive system of a person. Lactose intolerance could be caused by 3 main factors. It could be genetic, people are born with it, physiological decline with age, when people get older, they secrete less lactase, or injuries in the mucous membrane of the intestine. And when lactose molecules remain in the intestine undigested, they attract water, causing fullness, nausea, and diarrhea. The bacterial fermentation of lactose in the intestine produces lactic acid and gas, adding to the discomfort. Now let us see a sample of a test that or a quiz that has been asked before. Question number 1. This is a sample chemistry quiz with the answers. List the 5 basic nutrients. The answer of this question is the 5 basic nutrients are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, minerals, and vitamins. Question number 2. The linear structure of erythrulose is this. You can see it in front of you. Based on this structure, which of the properties is applied to erythrulose? Is it a pentose? No, because it's made of 4 carbons. Is it an aldose? No, because the carbonyl is not at the edge. Is it a ketose? Yes, because the carbonyl is in the middle. Is it a tetrose? Yes, because it's made of 4 carbons. Is it a reducing sugar? Yes, because it's a monosaccharide. Is it an isomer of glucose? No, because it is not C6H12O6. So this is the answer of question number 2. Question number 3. How can you test whether erythrulose is a reducing sugar or not? Explain. When you mix erythrulose with failing solution and heat, when sugar is reducing and you mix it with failing, upon heating it produces a brick red color. If a brick red color appears, then it's a reducing sugar. If no brick red color appears, then erythrulose is not a reducing sugar. But definitely in our test, since erythrulose is a monosaccharide, it will produce a brick red color. Question number 4. Write the word equation of the sucrose hydrolysis. Hydrolysis is breakdown or digestion. It takes place in the presence of water and certain enzymes in our digestive system. When sucrose breaks down, it produces glucose and fructose. The last question, define lactose intolerance. Lactose intolerance is the inability of a person to digest lactose due to the absence of the enzyme lactase in that person's digestive system.